It's Thursday, the 8th of July, 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. In today's headlines, Sydney's lockdown is extended by a week as big business mobilises to speed up the rollout of vaccines. Plus, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg says national interest ahead of commerce when it comes to China. Annuity group Challenger under takeover speculation after private equity takes a stake. And reports of another bid for Sydney Airport. Our lead story today, Sydney's lockdown has been extended for a week after another 27 new community cases of COVID-19 were reported yesterday. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian warned that even tougher lockdowns may be needed in local areas where cases have risen. The decision was taken in an emergency cabinet meeting, with reports that Treasurer Dominic Perrottet was the only MP against the lockdown extension due to the damage it will cause the economy. The most recent wave was hitting younger people harder. One person in their 30s with the virus was in intensive care, while 14 of the 37 people now in hospital were under the age of 55. The lockdown is estimated to wipe about $1 billion from Australia's gross domestic product each week. In contrast, most of Victoria's restrictions will be lifted tonight, allowing the state to return to normal, or something like normal. The bad news out of Sydney came as the CEO community came out in force yesterday, encouraging people to get vaccinated. Wesfarmers offered local Bunnings and Officeworks sites to boost community vaccination. Woolworths offered its national footprint, while Telstra boss Andy Penn said the rollout needed to be ramped up. Virgin Australia Chief Jane Herdlicker said a much better public education campaign was needed. In overseas news, the OECD has estimated that about 22 million fewer people are in the workforce in advanced economies as a result of COVID-19. While Australia has recovered many of the job losses, other countries led by the US have not. The report says some economies could have a jump in long-term unemployment. That's because low-skilled workers who lost their jobs at the start of the pandemic are least able to shift into sectors where hiring is strongest. Regulators in Beijing are planning to change rules that would allow them to block a Chinese company from listing overseas, even if that company earns revenue offshore, according to a report from Bloomberg. Ride-sharing group Didi listed a week ago on Wall Street, but lost $14 billion in value on Tuesday after Beijing's decision to not allow new users of the app. The president of Haiti was assassinated in his home overnight. It follows unrest in the impoverished Caribbean nation in recent months, with the country facing a humanitarian crisis and a widespread shortage of food. And former US President Donald Trump has filed a lawsuit against Facebook, Twitter and Google and their CEOs, claiming he and other conservatives have been wrongfully censored. Locally, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said the Morrison government was putting the national interest ahead of business in its relationship with China. It followed comments from the Biden administration that China was campaigning against Australia and becoming increasingly aggressive in the region. The White House coordinator for the Indo-Pacific, Kurt Campbell, expects Beijing to try and further isolate Australia. And while Canberra had tried to mend fences, it had come to naught. Mr. Frydenberg said the government would always put the national interest first. US-based private equity group Apollo Global and Bermuda-based life assurance group Athene have joined together to take an 18% stake in annuity provider and fund manager Challenger Limited. It sent shares in the group up more than 10% yesterday before they closed 9% higher. Athene is seeking regulatory approval to lift its stake above 20%, media outlets reported yesterday. Challenger has been the subject of unsubstantiated rumours for months, but it now looks like the business is in play. A consortium led by Macquarie Group is considering a rival offer for Sydney Airport, following the $22 billion bid for the company by an IFM-led consortium of infrastructure investors earlier in the week. According to Bloomberg, Macquarie has been talking to potential partners, including superannuation funds. Another option was for Macquarie to ask to be part of the IFM bid. It's not clear how likely an alternative bid is. Under siege retailer Myer has offered a board seat to Solomon Lew's Premier Investments, after the latter lifted its stake in the department store to more than 15%. Mr. Lew has plenty of history with Myer. As a teenager, he supplied dresses to the department store and went on to become chairman of Coles Myer, but was eventually turfed out. He's since built Premier Investments into one of the best retailers in the country and, personally, is worth more than $4 billion, according to the Financial Review Rich List. But since leaving Myer, he's always been a harsh critic of the department store and its board. Myer's market capitalisation is now under $360 million. Premier's is $4.4 billion. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning. And if you'd like more detail and more stories, search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. We also release a daily interview. Today, we're talking about how to find a good asset manager. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.